Good morning. It is 9:36 Tuesday, March 17th, and it's also St. Patrick's Day. So, happy St. Patrick's Day for anyone who is Irish or who likes alcohol because yeah, those things go hand in hand. I don't usually, well, I should say there's been years where I will do something for St. Patrick's Day. In the past, I've had, sometimes around St. Patrick's Day, an occasion, there's been a few times where I've had like a gig or some kind of gig at a bar or, something going on that way. A couple times I've gone out for St. Patrick's Day, to a local bar, usually like Marshall Wharf, Three Tides. That was a place that would be a lot of fun to go to for St. Patrick's Day. They still do a lot of things there. I don't go there as much, but I still do go to Marshall Wharf. It's still, it's still a fun place to go, and I have played quite a few gigs there, but I'm not going to be going there tonight, which is St. Patrick's Day. I'm going to actually be going over to my folks for corned beef and cabbage, and I'm going to get some movies. So it's going to be a good time. I'm excited. I like corned beef and cabbage very much. Get some beers, so it'll be fun, and I'll get some movies. Got to Opera House Video today, and just gotta you know remember to wear some green today. That's one thing I need to do. So other than that, should be good. So usually here when I'm starting these videos, I always love to give like some new news, for what it's worth, or updates as far as anything that's happening or new things that are coming up for my band Quantum. So, yeah, there's some new things to talk about with the band. We just had a couple of gigs recently that were super super fun. We just played a couple of weeks ago at Hey Sailor with my great friend Halsey. That was a great time. Always a blast. He's an old friend of mine, and we played in bands together. He's my personally my favorite bass player to play gigs with. The main band that we were in, Bone Broth, broke up a couple of years ago, so it's pretty sporadic when we get to play together now. Every now and then, I will get asked to fill in for Sam, my friend Sam, who plays in a band with Halsey, and I will sometimes fill in for him. It's a band called Very Greasy, really probably the best cover band. So like I do those gigs here and there every now and then occasionally we have this other project that is kind of from, I guess, remains or the ashes of Bone Broth. We had this project that called Space Junk with Ronnie, and it's just basically Bone Broth, but just as a trio, more or less. And there's a little bit more improv, I guess, with that band. We've played a few gigs, not a whole lot, but that band isn't like a very busy band, but we do play gigs here and there, and it's always fun. Like we've played at Hey Sailor once, we played at actually the Lobster Festival once, and then we played a Halloween show this past Halloween, which was a lot of fun. So it's pretty sporadic. But outside of that, our main kind of ways of working together has been through our electronic groups. So we played a couple of weeks ago at Hey Sailor, and that was a super fun time. And then the week after that, I played with Sonic Wallpaper, aka Ronnie, who also played in Bone Broth and is in Space Junk. Amazing guitar player, great friend, super creative. He also has a wonderful electronic project that's mostly like improvised based, and we did a show at Opera House Video during the ice sculpturing festival, which was about a little over a week ago, and that was really great. We've done a few shows at Opera House Video, but this past one was really good. There were a good amount of people in town, or a lot of people in town, because of the festival, which helped, I think, with our show. We had a good little crowd, a lot of people coming and going, and it was probably overall show that we've had there, and it was cool because did a we tried experimenting with a different format. It was mostly improvised, and we kind of did this round robin thing where we would trade off our sets basically every 10 or 15 minutes. We didn't really stick with like the traditional thing of like, okay, I'll play a 45-minute set or an hour set of we'll do a quantum set, and then you do a set of your material for 45 minutes, and then that will be the show. We just kind of we interacted the whole time, and it was cool. It was all like improvised, and that was really fun. And we don't have a I don't have a date yet to announce, but we're gonna definitely do it again this year. Later, probably spring is actually the first day of spring is actually this Friday, which is pretty awesome. The spring weather is kind of here right now. Really beautiful day today. We had so much fucking rain and gloom yesterday, but today the sun's coming out. It's a really beautiful day, and it's great. It's St. Patrick's Day, so first day of spring is coming up on Friday. But we'll definitely be doing another show later this year together at Opera House Video, which I'll definitely announce that and do a bunch of promotion for it, which I'm excited about. We're going to try to do it again with another event. We're not going to I don't think I'm going to do it just with us just doing our thing. I mean, obviously that will be what we will be doing, but I'm going to try to tie in the next show that we do at Opera House with another kind of event that either the store, Opera House Video, will be doing, or the town, because I think that that seems to help a lot. So stay tuned for that. That will happen at some point. We're kind of in discussion or talks with about that. So, and then we're going to be playing one of the gigs that I'm really excited about, which is coming up this summer. We're going to be playing at Quantum's got a gig in, I think it's in August, and it's going to be at this really awesome venue that we played at last year. Actually, I played a gig there with Osmia called Auspicious Brew, which is in New Hampshire. Really, really cool venue. Played a gig there, and I had reached out to them fairly recently, and they liked our material for Quantum, so we just booked a gig there with a few other bands. So I'm really excited about playing there. It's a really, really cool venue. And I heard too that they just recently expanded, made it even a bigger thing of it. So really excited about that. And then we're going to be doing our annual amphitheater gig coming up. I think that's in June at the Camden Library. That's a gig that I really, really love doing. I actually look forward to doing that gig a lot every year. We've basically been doing that gig since the inception of the band. We do it every summer. There's only been maybe one summer that we didn't do it, and it was because my equipment died. So we'll be doing it in the summer in June sometime. I can't remember the date offhand. Basically, we just set up and play for a couple hours at the Camden Amphitheater, which is such an amazing spot, such a beautiful venue. And that's been a tradition for us since basically I started the band, and I really love that gig because it's just such a beautiful location and everything. And then a gig that's coming up pretty soon is we're going to be playing. We just got asked to do a set or two at the American Legion Hall in Belfast. There's a band that has been in the area, a really great band called the Phil Hummer and the White Falcons, which is kind of this really cool punk rockabilly band. For about a year, maybe a little less, about a year, but I played a lot of gigs with them, mainly at Hey Sailor, but I played there a lot with them. And then it was like kind of sporadic here and there. But about a year ago or so, they started doing these events. They do it once a month where they do these bigger shows at the Legion Hall. And the Legion Hall in Belfast is actually really cool. It's got a big stage. It's a big room. I really love playing there, and I've seen a lot of great music there. But it's actually an awesome venue. So they've been doing these showcases where they play and then they have a couple other bands. Usually it's like three bands. So there's going to be another one coming up next week, and they asked us to play, which I'm really excited about. So we we've played at the Legion Hall, but it was like a long time ago, and so that'll be fun. And there'll be more things coming up. Working on some other ideas. Working some other got some other shows and some other things that I have kind of had on the back burner for a little bit. So yeah, and I'm really excited about this movie that I'm going to be talking about today. Extremely excited. So it's not a new situation, but every now and then, there's a movie that I've heard about that I hear about in passing for a long period of time. And in my case, it's usually because I watch a lot of YouTube, and obviously the reason I got into YouTube was getting exposed to getting into a lot of YouTube channels talking about movies and then also music, which obviously helped inspire this wacky thing that I do called Film Fanatic. And I continue to watch it and to learn about this whole kind of thing, trying to improve. I always get new ideas. I'm usually always brainstorming. Mainly, I just want to, the main thing is a movie that I'm really excited about. I just want to basically turn on the camera and talk about it. That's really all it is. At the end of the day, that's my only motivation. I don't really care about too many other things around it. It's mainly just I really love these movies. They're super fun. They are just really there's something really satisfying about them. It's great escapism. It's therapeutic, and it's just really fun. So I just want to share those feelings. That's really all. The only purpose is for this channel, and to every now and then I get. Well, I'm really appreciative of the audience that I have been able to kind of slowly build over the last few years, because I haven't had the channel for all that long, 3 years, maybe a little less, where it's been more active. And there's some guys and girls that I watch on YouTube that have had their channels for like years, 10 years. So it's still in its infancy, but I really love doing it, and I just that's really all it's about. And I really support I try to support movies that I really believe in, that I feel are not talked about enough. And so one of the things, if there's a mission statement, if you will, which there really isn't, but I guess it's kind of unspoken, is to bring movies to the table. Every now and then I come across a movie that is super obscure and super underground that I hear no one ever talk about, or just a movie that is just generally forgotten about or just super underrated. It could be the situation of where it could be a movie by a pretty famous director, but that movie or this movie in particular, or one of his movies in particular, is one that just never talks about. He's mainly known for these other ones. But if I can bring a handful of movies or a movie to the table, put a little light on it, and people will be like, "Oh, okay, cool. I've never heard of that," or "That looks really cool. I want to check that out." If there's a mission statement for what I'm trying to do with this channel, it would be that. And again, I really appreciate all the support that I've gotten in the last few years. It's been a really great time, and so. And one of the things I'm slowly putting together, which I'm trying to move into, is to do more interview shows. Those are schedule-wise, those are a little bit harder to do, but I'm working on those things slowly, so there'll be more eventually. But what I was starting to say, every now and then you hear about a movie, and it's kind of always on your radar, and you're not sure. In this case, especially in this case, you're not sure if it's a movie that you ever saw. And you keep hearing about it, you keep hearing about it, and I've heard about this movie for years from a lot of great YouTube channels and from, I would say, really good, reliable sources. And this is a movie I kept hearing about from, for the last 5 years. It's crazy. I would hear about it a lot and then, kind of forget about it, got I get preoccupied with checking out these movies or buying these movies or what have you, and then I kind of forget about it. But then a couple of weeks later, or a couple of months later, or even the following year, I hear about it again, and I'm like, okay, fuck, I need to check this movie out. And then there was a time I heard about, again, I heard about this movie for a few years. Was not sure if I saw it, and every time I would hear about it, and it was usually through YouTube, some of the YouTube folks that I watch pretty regularly, because I generally just watch YouTube because social media is a shit fest. I just use Facebook for promoting music stuff, and sometimes I do film stuff, and then I check out Facebook to see about music events that are coming up, or just things that are coming up for movies or whatever. But generally, I try to stay off it because it's a fucking cesspool. And it's again, it's a weird catch-22 because I feel like it's the only way to really have an impact as far as getting promotion going and all those things. And it's the only way I find out about things. So it's a weird thing. But otherwise, I try to stay away from it. But YouTube is the thing that I generally do like. It's kind of the same thing. I mean, there's a lot of bullshit on YouTube as well. But I feel like it's a little easier to just kind of go to the things that you like to do or like to watch and, invest that time in and not be distracted necessarily. So anyway, I kept hearing that this movie was just amazing. And that is 1981's, and I finally got it, 1981's The Prowler. I had been looking for this movie for quite a while. I generally do not order anything online. There have been a few movies over the years that I have gotten. When I started getting into really wanting to buy more and more exploitation movies, I did buy Bill Leswig's Maniac. I did buy some Herschel Gordon Lewis movies. And then recently I got Microwave Massacre on Blu-ray. And then I got the Frankenstein, A True Story, the 1973 TV movie. I got those on Blu-ray. I ordered those. Those were pretty hard to find. But generally, I love the art of the hunt. Going to Bull Moose, searching through the bins. Occasionally, once in a blue moon, I'll find some of these movies, maybe at Goodwill, but generally not. Or, what have you, just different places. But generally, it's always at Bull Moose. And I had heard that this movie, The Prowler from 1981, was one of the greatest and one of the sickest slasher movies of all time. And I had been looking for this movie, and I was not sure if I had even seen this. And it came out in 1981. Joseph Zito directed this, which, again, I was blown away by that fact. Joseph Zito was the director for Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. And I'm like, fuck me, no way. I had no idea. So I watched this the other night, and I cannot wait to watch it again. This movie, all of the hype and all of the things that I heard about this movie were, I feel, this movie, every time I've heard people talk about this movie, The Prowler, it's all been incredibly through the roof praise. Just saying that this movie is like one of the greatest slasher movies ever made. It's one of the nastiest slasher movies ever made. It's super gory. It's, just, balls to the wall, like an incredible atmosphere, a great killer, the whole thing. And I have to say, after watching this movie, all of those positive reviews almost are completely spot on, but they could have even hyped it even more because everything I heard is true about this movie. This movie is a fucking slasher masterpiece. And I can't believe I've never seen this movie before. I definitely didn't see it. I don't know how I missed it because it came out in 81, kind of in the prime time decade for slasher movies. So, I don't know how I definitely heard of it, but years and years ago, and then I'd say within the last 3 to 5 years, there's a handful. I started hearing about it more and more. There's a handful of YouTube folks that I love that talk, mainly have shows on horror and slasher movies, exploitation movies, and this kept coming up. And I watched this the other night. I got it. I went to Blue Moose on Sunday, and I couldn't believe it that they had it there. I was just like, oh fuck yeah! So I was super excited. I watched it that night when I came home. I can't wait to watch it again. I was totally blown away by it, and I don't know how I missed it. Yeah, I never seen it before. It has got some of the greatest kills I've ever seen in a slasher movie. It's got some of the best, well, just direction. I love the story. The acting is really great. It's just nasty as hell, and the suspense. The thing that's so great about the Prowler is the atmosphere. The atmosphere is incredible. The film score is absolutely masterful. And again, I just uploaded a video on going to see last weekend, Friday, on going to see Friday the 13th, the final chapter, and that was directed by Joseph Zito. I didn't know he directed this as well, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, that's insane. So I'm like, after realizing or finding out that Joseph Zito also did the Prowler, his my regards for Joseph Zito have like skyrocketed. I mean, not only did he do pretty much the greatest Friday 13th movie, directed the greatest movie in the whole franchise, but he also did this movie, The Prowler, which is balls to the wall. It's next level. The other thing that's so awesome about this is I didn't realize it was a Blue Underground release, which is Bill Luswig's label, or boutique label. Bill Luswig, of course, one of my all-time favorite directors in the world of exploitation. Maniac, which is my favorite slasher movie of all time. Vigilante, amazing, a fucking amazing movie. The Maniac cop movies, he's just awesome. And I think it was maybe like 10 years ago or so, Bill Luswig pretty much retired from being a director. And then he started Blue Underground. I have quite a few of their titles. Blue Underground is one of the best, easily one of the best boutique labels out there. I love Bill Luswig. I mean, not only do I love his films, but I love his. Whenever you get a chance to see him interviewed, he is just amazing. He's got some of the most amazing stories. He was a primetime. I really feel like when it comes to the history of grindhouse cinema and some of the kind of the movers and shakers in that seedy, sleazy genre of filmmaking, he's one of the prime time guys. He's like the Michael Corleone of sleaze. Like when it comes to like that whole world, because he was like he's a New Yorker. He was living in New York during the grindhouse time. He was young. He was a filmmaker. He saw all of these movies when they were coming out. He made some of the greatest movies in the Grindhouse world. And again, he like more or less retired from filmmaking about 10 years ago, and then he started Blue Underground. And I always feel like he is, he's always, I feel like he's like paying it forward. He's always talking about movies that inspired him. Every time I've seen an interview with him, and he's pretty prolific. I mean, he does a lot of interviews. I highly recommend anybody out there, like if you find an interview with Bill Luswig, definitely check it out because the guy has got so many amazing stories. He knows so an insane amount of about film history in general. Like he's an encyclopedia of film, and he's so funny. He's kind of like he kind of comes across as this like weird kind of jolly Santa Claus kind of character. He's just so hilarious, and but he's just got so many amazing stories. And he knows the ins and outs of the whole sleazy world of the grindhouse period or decades. Just amazing. And he's done such an amazing job over the past, and I think Blue Underground has been around at least 10 years, maybe a little less, maybe a little bit more. But he's done just an incredible job with this kind of thing or notion of like paying it forward. Like, where I always think that's really cool. Like artists that I really love, when they do interviews or even, they might have a label or in this case, this is like a great example of that. But they talk a lot about their influences and they try to shine light on people that really inspired them growing up and, or, inspired their artistic visions. That idea of paying it forward, like don't ever like not ever really forgetting where you kind of came from and having a cool sense of humility around it and always kind of putting the light on that. And for me, that's what Bill Luswig is as a filmmaker and just as like an icon in the sleazy world of exploitation. So yeah, just amazing. He's the man. He's the man. And he does. There's tons of interviews with him on YouTube that are just unbelievably. They're just so entertaining as all hell. So I have quite a few Blue Underground releases. So yeah, I can't say enough good things about this movie. The premise of this movie is really cool. It's kind of like a period piece too. It starts off. It's basically more or less like centered around this guy. It starts off at the end of World War II, which is really interesting. And it's basically centered on this guy who is at war and he's overseas, he's fighting in the war, he's an American soldier, World War II, and there's a whole kind of introduction or sequence of where basically he's married and his wife ends up kind of leaving him in the midst of him being at war. And he basically, with the combination of his wife leaving him and then all the horrific kind of atrocities that he experienced in the war, he comes back to the States after coming home and he basically becomes this total fucking crazed psychopath killer. And that's kind of the premise of it. And he has this way of killing people where he wears all of these army, like, talk about the killer in a movie. I think the Prowler, like his whole costume and his whole like aesthetic with his outfit and his methods of killing people are amazing. Like unbelievable. He wears all of these really cool kind of army uh, fatigues and uses all of these old kind of World War II weapons to annihilate and massacre people. He wears this really cool kind of like trench warfare mask. Super badass, like super badass. And there's all these scenes like before he's gonna kill somebody where you see him like lacing up his boots and putting on his putting his blades in his holster and just super badass. And the kills in this movie are just fucking nuts. Like, I was kind of shocked by how brutal the kills were. Like, they really, really are. The other thing that is probably the biggest or the best part of this movie is that this movie, all of the effects in this movie were done by Tom Savini, the master, the greatest practical effects magician in the world of cinema. He did all the effects in this, and it's amazing. It's, I don't know, like, it's hard to say. This might be his crowning achievement. And I'm a massive Tom Savini fan, but the work he did in this, I just think, is probably so. Uh, it's just it's at such a high level. It's so realistic, so brutal. It's got some of the most brutal kills I've ever seen. Yeah, and even with, again, I've been so immersed, and I still got more videos to come out. But I've been, totally doing all of these shows on the Friday 13th franchise. And again, I just uploaded a video on my experience on going to see the final chapter on the big screen, which was absolutely phenomenal. Of course, same team did that movie. Joseph Zito directed that, the director of Prowler, and that was a real pivotal movie because that was the final chapter. That was the return of Tom Savini to the franchise, because of course Tom Savini did the practical effects in the very first Friday 13th. And he was the most prolific effects guy in the 80s. Like, he was, you know, virtually, it's safe to say that virtually almost every slasher movie that came out from like 1980 till about 1984 or 5, Tom Savini probably was involved to some degree. Did the effects in the movie, or supervised the effects, or did a few effect shots in that movie, in that particular movie. I mean, he was in so many fucking movies. I've seen interviews with Tom Savini where he talks about just how busy he was, where he was like literally going from one project to the next for years. And even he said too, he got to a point of where he forgot what projects he was actually involved in. There's one movie that he did that is actually a really fantastic movie. I love it. It's super low budget. It's really kind of a nasty movie, but it's super low budget, and it's one of the more low budget movies that I've seen. But I actually really love it, and it's an old, and it's like, I guess it's kind of a slasher movie. It's definitely a horror exploitation movie, without a doubt. And it's a movie called Midnight, and it's really great. A lot of people don't like that movie so much, they think it's so trashy. It's just trash, which I agree. It is pure trash, but I love it. I think it's great. But Tom Savini was hired on for a brief time to do some of the effects in that movie, and in the interview for on that Blu-ray disc for Midnight, which came out, I think that came out in 80 or 82, right around the time that these movies all came out. Prowler came out in 81. Final Chapter came out in 84. He like talked about how he didn't even remember doing the effects because of how busy he was. He literally was going from one project to the next. And then sometimes he'd be doing 2 or 3 movies at the same time, like just crazy. Crazy. Another movie that he did that is just amazing is The Burning. Oh, amazing. That's got some of the best kills ever. But I don't know, I probably have to say my favorite work is the work he did in Maniac. Maniac's my favorite slasher movie. That movie is just so fucking nasty and dirty, Yeah, but the Prowler, blown blown away, blown away by this movie. The music is incredible. The atmosphere. This movie has such a great balance because it's got such great suspense, and the kills are just brutal as fuck. Like brutal as fuck. One thing that's a little bit different, like I started to say, like you know, again, I've been doing so many videos on for the Friday 13th franchise, and I just did another show on seeing the final chapter. And that movie, has incredible kills. I mean, it's the best in the franchise overall. And again, it's primetime Tom Savini. But I will say, like, there is a difference because the way the way the kills are, say, and the editing in both movies for, say, the final chapter and then the Prowler is really different. The the editing, and again, by the time the franchise Friday 13th, was getting at the height, pretty much at the height of its popularity, which was around part 4, where the whole franchise had really became a thing. They the filmmakers, they had to battle the ratings board more and more, and so they were trying, and you see that in those films of where the gore, there's still plenty of gore in the films, but you see, as the movies progress, you do see less, and they're quicker cuts. Like, the camera doesn't stay on some of the brutality as much as you might want. It kind of goes by really quickly. You do see a quick cut of it, but I've seen interviews with Joseph Zito and the filmmakers on the final chapter, and they did have pressure from the ratings board to basically trim some of the scenes so it didn't basically get an X rating, because of the excessive gore. But they did a great balance with that movie because I mean, in that movie, you do see there's great kills, amazing, legendary kills in the final chapter, some of the best, probably the best in the franchise. But they're pretty quick. Like, you see these kills, they're brutal as fuck. You see the kills, but then they're quick. Quickly, you're on to the next scene. But you get just enough to where it's still impactful. But with the Prowler, there's no quick edits really. Like, you see the whole fucking scene, and it's brutal, and it's got even more, like, kind of this even more of a disturbing factor to it. So there's a difference. There's not like that, you know. I don't feel. I feel like Joseph Zito and Tom Savini they probably didn't get any pressure at all from the ratings board about editing the gore or the kills, because it feels like you're seeing them how they really intended. Not that that's taking anything away from the final chapter as far as the editing goes, but it was definitely a factor that it didn't affect or hinder that movie from being such a classic slasher movie, a quintessential slasher movie. But you do see it, and it was a factor. Whereas when I watched the Prowler the other night, I feel like there was no, like, they were able to just shoot the movie as they wanted, not have to worry about editing, not worrying about the ratings board or length of the film. It feels like that's what went into this movie. I'm not 100% sure. There's not, the only thing that's kind of a bummer with this, the transfer of this on Blu-ray is absolutely spectacular. Like, it looks gorgeous. The sound is amazing. There's not really any special features on here, unfortunately, which is kind of disappointing. There is a commentary track, which I find a lot of times it's hard for me to get through commentary tracks because it's over the entire length of the movie. And I rather just watch the movie a lot of the times. But there is a commentary track which I might check out with the director Joseph Zito and Tom Savini, which would be pretty awesome to listen to. But as far as special features go, there really isn't anything else on here, which was kind of disappointing. But I am so excited that I got this because I can't wait to watch it again. The other thing, I mean, this is a low down and dirty exploitation movie, slasher movie. Like, it's nasty, and the kills are just ferocious, ferocious. I was even kind of taken aback a couple times. I'm like, okay, wow, we're going there. All right, we are not holding back. The other thing, and I was like, ah, I'm totally into this movie. It's, and I will say the Prowler. I kicked myself for. I can't believe I've never seen this movie. I can't believe it. I don't know how I missed this movie. I don't know what the status. I mean, I do a little, and then but I don't really know the full picture. But I don't know how, when this movie came out back in the 80s, 81, I'm not sure how popular this movie was or how successful. I think it was very popular, but like with definitely the underground exploitation audience. But it might not have been. I just, again, I could be wrong. This is more of a dumb assumption, or could be on my end. But I kind of feel like movies like Maniac or My Bloody Valentine were, which are legendary. Those movies got more attention when they came out. But I feel like the Prowler, it had an audience, and I do believe it did very well, and it's gone on to have or acquire this like legendary status around it, which is completely true, and it deserves it even more so. But I don't think it was like uber super popular, like Maniac Cop, like where those movies, even though those are very underground movies, and definitely had a cult following, I think early on, in the Grindhouse decade, Grindhouse time. I don't think that I have a feeling like the Prowler was a little bit more under the radar, and it's one of those movies that's grown over the decades to where now it's like a thing of like legend. I think it was a little bit under the radar compared to movies that you know like that I just mentioned. And I don't know, and I think that's maybe why I didn't see it when I was a kid, because this was like right at that time when I had just got really exposed to these movies, especially the slasher genre, and I remember, because I remember as a kid when, getting, when VHS, there were, VHS rental places all over the place, and I remember, it was like a regular part of my childhood where on a Friday night, you know, after my mom was out of work and I was out of school, she'd pick me up after school or whatever, and we would go right to the video store. There was a video store, probably 3 or 4 miles from my house, and I grew up in New York. We would go to the video store and rent a bunch of movies. And I remember as a kid always going to the horror section. And I remember, and at that time I got exposed to slasher movies and horror movies, exploitation movies, even though I didn't know what the word exploitation was at the time. But I remember, seeing Friday the 13th was the very first slasher movie I ever saw. And then seeing My Bloody Valentine, and then even getting exposed really early on to movies by Lucio Fulci. I remember seeing House by the Cemetery when I was a really young kid, and it just really like scared the shit out of me. And a whole slew of movies. But I remember, like it was yesterday, going to the video store with my mom or my parents, and I would automatically go right to the horror section, because how because of how attractive the artwork was, in the aisle of looking at all of these horror films. And that was like a typical kind of Friday night, or how we would start our weekend. Then we'd come home. I would rent a couple of movies, and my mom was into horror, so a lot of the times we'd get some horror movies together. Come home, then we get the occasional you know kind of drama or action movie or what have you, and we'd come home and have pizza, and it would be pizza movie night, and then we'd watch the rest of the tapes that we rented, the rest of the weekend, and it was just great. But I don't remember, you know, seeing or hearing about the Prowler. So I'm like, man, I don't know how I missed this movie. But I have to say, after watching this, and I've only seen this movie once. I heard about this movie for years. I have to say, I can't wait to watch it again. But I have to say, hands down, it's the easily the greatest slasher movie ever made. Hands down, no questions asked. It's got some of the most brutal kills I've ever seen, ever. It has some of the best suspense. The story is really great. The killer is super amazing. I don't think this was turned into a franchise. I do believe The Prowler is just one movie, which I'm kind of surprised they didn't make it into more movies, because I could see it, because it's so good. I could easily watch three or four of these. But there's also something cool, and I don't believe The Prowler is a franchise. So there is something maybe even cooler about it, that it's just one movie, one and done. I think the movie, the Joseph Zito, his direction is really really great, phenomenal. And again, this is a really low budget, sleazy, low down, dirty, nasty, underground slasher movie, like the way you want it. The way, if you're into this shit, this is it. This is that experience. But I will say, it is really well done on a technical level. Like, it's got beautiful cinematography. The acting in this movie is really good. Better than most exploitation movies. Because most exploitation movies are, the acting's not great, the script is a little bit clunky, or it like the pacing of the film or the way the film might be edited. You're kind of like, wait, where the fuck did this movie go? But ultimately, for me, it makes the movie work because it's so bad. So bad it's good. But this movie doesn't have any of that. This movie is actually really, really, really well done, I think, from on a technical standpoint. Great act, like the acting, the cast is really great. I'm a big fan of the period piece, and it really does. Like, the first act or so of this movie takes place in the 1940s, and it's really, really well done. And that was a real big surprise for me, because again, I never seen this movie. I'm a huge fan of period piece films, and it really was really, really, really well done. Like, the whole kind of the set pieces that were used, the fashion from the 40s, the cars, the music, really cool, really, really cool. And there's a lot of kind of big scenes of lots of actors. You have maybe three or four actors in the forefront with lines, but then there's a couple of scenes in the beginning where they're at this kind of big dance. All of these, you were getting introduced to these characters at this big gala, and it's like this big dance at this big hall, and it's a big kind of fancy gathering. And it's actually a New Year's Eve party. It's a New Year's Eve celebration in the 40s, and it's really cool. Like, the way it's set up, it's really believable. The detail is great, and there's all these extras, and these are, big scenes. And this movie, from what I gathered, was like really low budget, but it almost feels like it's a bigger Hollywood film. But yet, for obvious reasons, it's not a big Hollywood film at all because of where this movie goes. And the build to this movie is so cool because it goes from really intense scenes of where the kills are just ferocious, and then there's chase scenes, if you will, or action that's kind of amped up, action sequences, and then the film kind of has this real cool dynamic of where it gets really quiet and it gets slow, but then it builds up again slowly, and the Prowler has such great atmosphere, so good, and it's super creepy, super creepy. I think it's got some generally scary moments, and the kills are just brutal as fuck, like unbelievable, like some of the best kills I've ever seen. Totally blown away. But as far as an exploitation movie and just as a movie in general, it's really well directed, really great cinematography, great acting. The script is really good. It's actually a high quality film, even though it's a low down and dirty exploitation movie. And I get reminded of that every now and then. A lot of the movies that I watch are, they're pretty schlocky, and most people would say, no, that's kind of a piece of shit. And that's okay. And I say this a lot, probably too many times, but I'm a firm believer in that. I do think something can be so god awfully can be so awful and so terrible that ultimately, because it's so extreme in that way, it can actually make the movie or that art or that even the music great and awesome. Where it kind of almost acts where it like flips itself, and it actually is good. So I'm a firm believer that something can be so bad it's good. And so for the most part, it's safe to say most exploitation movies have this reputation of just being, first and foremost, just pure trash and garbage, like a dumpster fire. But ultimately it works. I think, when you think of, I think a primetime example of that are the films of Herschel Gordon Lewis, where they're just total shit, really, garbage. But they're fascinating, and they're just amazing, and they're just like so crazy and bonkers that you like this movie is, or these movies are just, they're fucking awesome. So it works in that bizarre context. So, it's most horror slasher movies, exploitation movies have that reputation, and it's a stereotype, and I think that's pretty accurate. But then, I discover movies that are in the genre films like this, but they're actually really, really well done, and it doesn't fit into that typical stereotype. And I think The Prowler is one of those movies because technically it's done so well. It's got all those elements as to like, what, maybe what a filmmaker is taught in film school, from maybe an academic level of, this is kind of what you need to make a good movie, and it's got to have this care and detail and all of these, and checking the boxes off. And mostly in the world of exploitation, that all of that stuff is completely thrown out of the window. But in this case, it's not. It's not the case. It is a very, very well done movie, even though it's definitely a primetime, low budget exploitation movie. And it's cool. I love the period piece aspect, which is really unique for me. you know, because the slasher genre is my favorite genre ever. I like. I'm pretty happy now. It's been a few years now, but I'm pretty happy being that the slasher genre is my favorite style of film making. I'm pretty happy with what I have now. I mean, there's still a lot of titles I need to get, you know, as far as slasher movies. And again, movies that I grew up watching, slasher movies I've seen, but I don't have them yet on Blu-ray. And then also movies like this that I had never seen before, which is crazy. But as it is now, or where it stands now, I'm pretty happy with my slasher collection. Like I think I have a pretty cool selection. And I'll probably do a video at some point of where I'm going to just do a video on just my slasher collection because that's like kind of my main focus. But the Prowler is amazing, and I have to say, after watching it, it is now easily in my top five of all time. Amazing! It's a masterpiece. It's so fucking awesome. 1981. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Peace.